So today's video, I want to talk, somebody recently asked me a question about dealing with body pains as symptoms, right? So, I mean, this could be chronic pain, it could be like body pain as your main symptom, and it can be, like when I'm talking about symptoms, right? For some people, the process feels like a chronic illness. For some people, you're on like an awakening path and there's a lot, or it's like a trauma healing thing. Like when you're working with these deep emotions, deep complexes in your mind, it's a very physical journey, right? So there can be a lot coming up in your body. So, for different people, like I often feel like I'm bridging the gap between awakening talk and chronic illness talk, and for me the lines are very much blurred between the two. So wherever you're coming from, this is an approach that I want to share around working with physical pain on your transformation, healing, awakening journey. So the question was, how would I deal with this, or how have I dealt with this? And I have on multiple occasions worked a lot around physical pain in my experience. And this is how I would approach it, right? So initially, when we're dealing with pain in our experience, there's a strong habit to want to distance ourselves from it. And in between that experience of us and the pain is the experience of resistance, right? So that's how we feel like we can distance ourselves from physical experience, is through resisting, and then through resistance going into thoughts, right? Imagining things, right? And mostly it'll be stories. It could be a victim story, it could be and there'll be emotions probably associated as well: frustration, anger, unfairness, blame, all these things in reaction to the pain. And all of that's fine, right? So the first thing that I would say is you want to give yourself a space to explore this. This is why I share meditation a lot. And I highly recommend it, because when you're going about your day-to-day things, or even if you're distracting yourself through like reading and consuming content, like all of that's fine. But the real juice of transformation and healing is in directly exploring the nature of your experience, right? So first step I would say is give yourself space to sit and explore this pain, right? This intense discomfort that you're feeling. And that might be a revolutionary step for you, because you're like breaking the habit pattern of avoidance and distraction. And that is the first key step, I would say. You have to break the habit pattern of avoidance and distraction. So do it, right? And this is the beauty, right? It might not sound beautiful when I'm saying this, but this is the beauty in physical symptoms, in physical pain, is that it's forcing you to really actually look into your direct experience, as opposed to running into the mind, into distraction all the time. The pain eventually builds up, and you're only going to be willing to do this once the discomfort reaches the level where you don't have a choice anymore. And that's the gift in it, is that it's forcing you to go where you need to go, but you would rather resist. Okay, so let's say you've taken that step. You're willing, maybe even there's a lot of unwillingness and resistance still there. That's fine, but just take that step of like, I'm going to sit and explore what I'm experiencing here. And then I would kind of open up to more of a gentle curiosity, as opposed to a fighting and getting caught up in resistance. Be open to your experience, but be curious, right? And for me, this often just starts with just sitting, right? It's not even a very active technique or approach. Like if I can feel this, like even still, if I'm really busy, like things will build up in the nervous system, in my physical experience, and then all I want to do is go and sit and meditate and give space for this stuff to be processed, basically. And the way that I'll approach that is to just kind of orient towards what is the most uncomfortable thing in my experience, and then be curiously open and like relaxed but alert, if that makes sense. So it's okay if this doesn't feel natural at first, right? All of these things, it's beautiful that they build momentum the more you start to practice them. But I would say kind of orient towards, so sit down, give yourself some space to explore, just become curious about the nature of the thing that you don't want to experience. It could even be a thought. It could be a thought about the symptom that is getting you all caught up. It could be a thought about the future or the past, right? Like a fear-based thought is what triggers people a lot. And then you're kind of carrying that thought around with you 24/7, and then it feels like you have this massive problem. So go into your experience and ask yourself, what is it that I'm afraid to experience? It is such a fruitful question. That's like, honestly, it has taken me into the depths of what I need to explore multiple times, and it has kind of simplified things for me, because I'll be sitting there and you could get caught up in the thoughts. The mind can be very busy, and you can get caught up in all of these stories pulled around in all of your problems. And then I'll just ask myself, but what am I afraid to feel? What is the problem in my experience right now? Right? And if it's physical pain, that's great, because that gives you something very tangible to orient towards. Flip your switch on your perception of this, right? Like, as I'm saying this, like, physical pain is great. You might not like to hear that, but that is the beauty in this, is like, see that as an opportunity, right? Every single symptom you have is an opportunity to curiously explore your experience. Sure, it's intense and it's challenging, and there can be all these emotions around what you're going through, but let's let go of that, right? That's not serving you to kind of actively resist what you're experiencing. Sure, have compassion. Like, this is coming from a place of compassion for anybody that's struggling, but make that active choice of, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. I'm going to get curious about this. It's a game changer when you start to use your symptoms and your pain as an entry point into transformation, right? And just be aware of what arises. Like, it's okay if your natural response as you start to explore the pain is to try and get rid of it, right? This is like the number one challenge that people deal with when trying to use this like acceptance, allowance, exploration approach with symptoms and pain, is they notice the subtle resistance of feeling something to get rid of it, right? But to just see that is in itself very powerful. So to become aware of that is half the job already, right? So it's not like, it's too much to expect yourself to sit and feel the pain and not have any resistance at all, right? I think that's what confuses people sometimes, is they see the resistance, they see themselves, I want to get rid of this pain, and that's okay. Seeing that is huge, right? So that's you just want to be open to what is occurring in your experience. You want to, the more that you become aware of the experience of resistance, it's no longer unconsciously driving your life, right? And you can kind of investigate it. It's so, all of the power is in investigating the subtleties of your experience, the subtleties of resistance. And notice like how resistance is always kind of just behind you, right? You don't actively see resistance, you see like the effects of resistance, if that makes sense, where resistance is like wanting to get rid of something, or hoping that through this experience something's going to go away, and then just kind of play with that experience, right? So what is the thing that I'm hoping to get away? What is so much of a problem, right? Even intense physical pain can become fascinating, honestly, right? It can be very intense, sure, and this is where, overwhelming yourself constantly is going to make it difficult to do these kind of explorations, because you're just going to be overwhelmed. So, obviously kind of an intuitive balance of, listening to your body and feeling what you can and can't do, and being willing to push that is important. But when the symptoms are there, right, when the pain is there, explore it. It can be fascinating. What is this, and why am I resisting it? Why can I not stay with this for one moment and realize that you are actually experiencing it? Because what always happens is we want to get away from the physical experience, so we will stay in the thoughts about the physical experience, and that's where things are so challenging, because the thought will be saying, I can't handle this one moment, it's too overwhelming, I'm going to be stuck with this forever. Here it is again, what's caused this, right? All of these millions and millions of thoughts can just like completely pull you around hypnotically. But if you just keep reorienting your attention back to the actual thing that it's referencing, okay, but what is the problem? What can I not experience? You simplify the process tremendously. And the practice is just to return your attention to that. You're going to get pulled around. The mind produces thoughts. You're going to get distracted. That's fine, right? Just kind of reorient towards what am I so afraid to experience? And the more willing you are, like the more sick of your stuckness you are, I suppose, that can be fuel to make you willing to go into things that you would usually not want to go into, right? To feel the discomfort that you would normally rather run from. So, yeah, I mean, pain is a really great entry point. Like I was recently, and it's a great entry point back into your body, right? It's an orienting to physical kind of tangible presence as opposed to mental reflection. I was running a hard 10K race yesterday, and there was lots of pain to kind of ground myself in during the run. That's just one example where I was exploring pain in the moment. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. And really, the more that you can start to see, to remind yourself that symptoms are not something for you to fight against. They're not something that's out there to get you. But hold space for the emotions that they trigger, right? Because this is what happens. Obviously, you're not going to immediately shift into, like, all the negative emotions just don't just disappear. If you can hold space compassionately to be okay with negative emotion, that's powerful, right? Because then you can start to use your symptoms and your pain as an entry point, but you're also not repressing emotions, right? This is where people get stuck, is where they believe that they shouldn't be feeling hopelessness, they shouldn't be feeling grief and loss at their life, they shouldn't be feeling sadness, right? They feel like, I need to be happy all the time. But to give yourself a compassionate space where you're allowed to feel whatever is asking to be felt in your experience. Frustration is such a common one that redirects our attention, is we're so sick of where we're at, we're so frustrated. Anger, a lot of repressed anger, right? So you want to have this space to allow all of this out, right? You can journal it out, like what is this emotion, what is the place that it's trying to speak from, and then just kind of pour that onto a page. That's powerful, right? You're not afraid of feeling emotions, but you don't want to get stuck in an emotion. You want to have an awareness of the emotion and hold space for it, but still have this ground of, I guess, gratitude. Yeah, like an approach of this is the way forward, is to go into this and then allow whatever. So those are the two parts that are really important, I would say. It's not about bypassing emotions. Allow whatever is coming up in your experience, but the subtle trick is you can get sucked into like a victim negative resistance story. I've seen this happen to me many times, where it's like, okay, I'm just allowing all the emotions, and that's good, but then it's a reminder of, oh, okay, but I'm actually actively closing myself off and getting into this like negative worldview, if that makes sense. So there's nothing wrong with so-called negative emotions. You want to have a nice, healthy space to let them through, but you also want to, not let that kind of completely cloud your view, if that makes sense. Alrighty. Good luck.